Well, hello and welcome to another video of casting from 3D printed patterns, in my case for live steam locomotives. What you're looking at here is a CAD image of half a cylinder from a 7.25 gauge Highlander as designed by the very well known Martin Evans, and has been built many times across the UK in various clubs, and I'm sure many other places around the world. The reason you're seeing half of a cylinder block here is because in order to create a sand casting, you need to be able to imprint two or more parts of that pattern in sand in order to then join the half flasks together to create a whole casting. It may seem a little bit strange. We're going to cover that in more detail in future videos. What I wanted to show you at this stage was just what a 3D printed pattern CAD file looks like. When the other half is married to this, you create a whole cylinder, which can then be cast in sand, using iron to give you a iron casting of a cylinder block. I'll now go over to what the cylinder block actually looks like in two halves once printed. Okay, so what you see here is the two halves of the 3D printed cylinder block married up. There's also a ruler under there to give you some sort of scale. As a 7.25 gauge cylinder block, you can see it's fairly sizable. Won't be any problem in casting that in iron using the sand casting method. Hopefully it makes sense how these two fit together. They do need a little bit of filing to sit them perfectly snug. You can see there's a few little edges that need to be pushed together there, but once done, that'll be absolutely fine, and that will fit together perfectly to form two halves of a pattern. I'll just separate them now so you can see how it actually fits together and visualize it. So they're the two halves of the pattern disassembled. I'm not wanting this video to cover 3D printing in any detail. There's some amazing videos by a lot more experienced people than me on YouTube regarding 3D printing. These are relatively large 3D printed patterns as 3D prints go. It did take a while. I've only got a small 3D printer, but it is quite accurate. It's a Sindo Korean printer called a 3D Wax, if anyone is interested in those. I'd recommend them. They're very good. You may also be looking at some angular edges on what should be completely smooth edges. There's easy ways to get those out. As we go on in the videos, you'll see how we manage that. But you can see there the two halves of the pattern. You can also see extrusions where there are supposed to be holes. Those extrusions are to hold sand cast, sand and essentially hard sand casting, which will give the opening in the cylinder block. So that can then be machined to exact size. I won't go into how we use sodium silicate and sand just yet. You'll see that in up and coming videos, but it's very straightforward. Again, there's a whole host of coverage of that on YouTube. We're going to cover it again, but there's a lot of people that have done some amazing videos on that. But this is our 3D printed pattern. This will be our cylinder. I'll show you a few more of our wheels in a second. Okay, what we've got here are the bogie wheels of the 7.25 Highlander. Or I say this is one wheel of what will be four wheels that make the bogie of the 7.25 inch Highlander. The black circle on the left is actually the rear of the wheel, which will form the hub or the raised part of the wheel to enable it to sit within the track. I'll just flip them over so you can see how that works. It's the same principle as the large driving wheels that I showed in the previous video. Pins locate the rim onto the back of the wheel using these small little holes here. As you can see around the wheel, they fit into the back of the wheel when we start the second part of the sand imprinting process. I'll just flip them over. Now you can see the small holes on the rear of the bogie wheel that will locate the rim as seen there to give you the rear of the pattern. The rest will make sense when we actually show how we lay it out in the flask and how we sand cast it and what we use to sand cast it. But just to give you an idea and a scale, that's the bogie wheel for the 7.25 Highlander. We are initially going to cast these one by one and see how we get on with the iron casting, and hopefully we'll do 4 or 6 dependent on how efficient our melting is, but we'll discover that as time goes on.